So this time around,
I have heard stories out of the Chimaev camp that Chimaev is training so hard and putting it on guys, elite level guys, like nothing you've ever seen before. I have heard Khamzat Chimaev wants people to go so hard with him to try to beat him and submit him and do. He's paying him. He doesn't care. I got some guys in the gym, at my gym, that know people there. They're like, man, this dude, if somebody can submit him, there's like money. The Saints got in trouble for bounty gate. Khamzat's putting a bounty on himself to make guys give him all that they have. This dude, it's different.
No, I know Imamov and Khamzat kind of don't want to fight each other. I'm not really excited for that fight. Not a lot of people are, but the Strickland fight, I believe I faced Strickland. In the striking, he definitely beats Khamzat for sure. Khamzat, a problem to deal with when he has you on your back. We've seen that many times. With Strickland, what he does brilliantly, I took Strickland down, I think 7 times. The way he gets up to hold him down is incredibly hard. At Extreme Couture, where they train, they specialize in that cage rush and in getting back to his feet. And Strickland's a lot stronger than people might think. I think he has a very good chance in that fight.
Needs no nickname. He gets called lots of names by a lot of people because he's a controversial guy. But I'll tell you what, the way that he beat Alexander Fluffy Hernandez, the way that he put a beat down on him respectfully to Fluffy, the way that he finished him with that knee to the midsection, and then to be honest, how he handled himself on the microphone, right?
Fluffy's the definition of a man.
He deserves this shot. Of course, he lost the belt to Dricus du Plessis. How's he going to do against Khamzat Chimaev? I don't know about that. Khamzat Chimaev is ridiculous. What is he, 15-0? He's a force.
Dude, Strickland by round 5 TKO, bro. You know, the classic fucking UFC 308 when Chimaev was fighting Whitaker. The amount of people I saw. Dude, Bobby Knuckles by fucking round 5 TKO, dude. Dude, Bobby Knuckles is going to survive 4 rounds of Khamzat Chimaev and then TKO him in the 5th round. And they genuinely think Khamzat Chimaev is like Guram, dude. They talk about Khamzat's cardio like he's fucking Jose Medino, dude. I don't think he's gonna drastically gas out fighting Sean Strickland. That's one reason why I'm picking him, despite the fact that I think Sean Strickland can get back up from
the UFC just dropped one of the most dangerous fights in the middleweight division, and the experts are already calling it a career-defining nightmare for Sean Strickland. We're talking about Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev, and let me tell you something. The betting odds are so lopsided it's almost insulting. Chimaev opened as a massive 6-1 favorite, which basically means Vegas thinks this is going to be a one-sided beatdown. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of the biggest names in MMA analysis are starting to question whether everyone's completely writing off Strickland too early. Michael Bisping, who knows a thing or two about surviving in the shark tank that is the middleweight division, is looking at this fight very differently than the casual fans. And when you dig into what these experts are actually saying, you realize this matchup is way more complex and dangerous than anyone initially thought.
That could be a problem, but realistically, do I think that Sean Strickland can stuff takedown after takedown and chain wrestle and stuff? I don't know. And if I was going to be honest, no, I don't think so. I think that Khamzat could do, maybe not exactly what he did to DDP, but he can eventually, if he, plays this smart and does the safe route, he can absolutely win this fight by like ground and pound decision, or not really ground and pound, but like top control, very light ground and pound decision. Or he could submit Sean Strickland. I could easily see him getting to the back and, with that freakish level strength he has and the squeeze, that could be part of it as well. So yeah, I am so in for this event though. That's so sick. May 9th, Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev is on the feet for a very, very long time. I can see Strickland If it is on the ground for long periods or even early, I'm saying Chimaev probably washes him. But, I mean, you see, as of right now...
Here's what nobody's talking about, though. This isn't just some random matchup the UFC threw together to fill a card. Strickland and Chimaev have serious history from training together in the past, and there's been this simmering tension building between them for months on social media. You can feel the genuine animosity when they talk about each other in interviews. Strickland earned this shot after that absolutely devastating body shot finish against Paulo Costa, where he showed a completely different level of killer instinct than we'd seen before. He didn't just win that fight, he dominated it with relentless pressure and finished Costa with a shot that dropped him like he'd been hit by a truck. Meanwhile, Chimaev is sitting there undefeated, having physically dominated every single opponent he's faced, turning elite fighters into wrestling dummies. Even in his decision win against Robert Whittaker, which some people tried to frame as a weakness, Chimaev controlled one of the best middleweights in the world for long stretches, showing he can maintain that suffocating pressure for 15 hard minutes.
Of course, talking about the one and only Khamzat Chimaev taking on for the middleweight title Sean Strickland. That is correct. Sean needs no nickname. He gets called lots of names by a lot of people because he's a controversial guy. But I'll tell you what, the way that he beat Alexander Fluffy Hernandez, the way that he put a beat down on him respectfully to Fluffy, the way that he finished him with that knee to the midsection, and then, to be honest, how he handled himself on the microphone, right?
Fluffy's the definition of a man.
He deserves this shot. Of course, he lost the belt to Dricus du Plessis. How's he going to do against Khamzat Chimaev? I don't know about that. Khamzat Chimaev is ridiculous. What is he, 15-0? He's a force of nature. Of course, went to a decision with Dricus du Plessis, controlled him throughout the entirety of the fight. Yes, he was trying to finish it, but he didn't get it. But other than that, he does.
But here's where Michael Bisping's analysis gets really interesting, and why his opinion carries so much weight. Bisping isn't buying into the narrative that this is going to be an easy night for Chimaev. He's looking at Strickland's striking style, built around that constant jab and relentless forward pressure, and he sees a fighter who could make this way harder than people expect. Strickland throws massive volume, just pumping that jab over and over to control range and tempo, and when he gets in his rhythm, he breaks fighters down mentally and physically. The problem is, Chimaev completely changes fights the moment he gets his hands on people. Bisping basically framed the entire matchup as Strickland trying to survive long enough in the grappling exchanges to make it a striking fight where he has every advantage. And here's the kicker. Bisping thinks Strickland might actually be one of the few guys in the division who can make that wrestling part difficult because of his wide stance, excellent balance, and the defensive awareness he's developed over years of fighting elite competition.
I know Imavov beat Kyle Bohayo, but when you look at it, Strickland's already beat Imavov. Yeah, it was a while ago, but a win's a win. And he just put a beat down and a stoppage on Fluffy, right? Imavov beat Kyle Bohayo by decision. And we all know this sport's about what have you done for me lately. There is a backstory between Chimaev and Sean Strickland. They have trained with one another. There's a bit of shit talk. There's going to be bad blood. We know that the lead up to the fight will be goddamn insane, right? Chimaev doesn't hold back. He talks shit, but in a kind of reserved way, but like he truly believes in himself. And Sean Strickland is just going to go on the full offensive. We know that. We know that. He's going to be talking some crazy shit. Dana even joked about it on the little show that we did there. He said they're going to need extra security for that fight during the fight week, leading up to the fight, after the fight, in the fight. It's going to be a mad one because Sean Strickland doesn't hold back. And you know what? Even if you don't like the shit that he says, you have to appreciate the entertainment value that he brings to the table. And then on top of that, the performances inside the octagon. That one against Fluffy, that...
Now get this part, because this is where the expert analysis gets really wild. Bedtime MMA spent hours breaking down the grappling sequences, and his take completely flips the conventional wisdom on its head. Yeah, he thinks Strickland will probably get taken down at some point. That seems almost inevitable given Chimaev's explosive power and timing. But here's what most people are missing. Strickland is actually really good at getting back to his feet. He breaks grips well, fights hands intelligently, and works back up to standing without giving his back away or putting himself in submission danger. So instead of Chimaev just holding him down and pounding him out like he's done to other fighters, Bedtime MMA expects a lot of sequences where Chimaev gets the initial takedown. establishes control for a bit. But then Strickland battles his way back up through smart defensive grappling. And here's where it gets even more interesting. That constant battle of takedown and scramble back up could actually work against Chimaev's cardio over time.
But I just feel like it's basically you have to accept, okay, Sean Strickland is going to get taken down. But a reason why I think he's going to do well in this matchup despite that is because he's not a guy I worry about if he gets taken down. We've seen in the DDP fight that Sean Strickland has a very good and underrated ability to get back up from takedowns, which a lot of other middleweights don't, right? Because Khamzat doesn't have to get perfect setups to take you down. He has that BJJ threat that allows him to rack up control time. But Sean Strickland is very high level in his ability to break the grips, to fight the hands, to get back up to his knees, then to his feet without giving up his back too much, without putting his neck out there and getting submitted. Because that's the real danger with a guy like Khamzat Chimaev, right? You fucking wrestle up the wrong way, you're ending up on BJJ Fanatics, dog. You wrestle up the wrong way, you put your head out there. What's up, guys? Today we're gonna break down how Khamzat Chimaev got the finish. That you're going on IG Reels, bro. You know what I mean, dude? Jack Slack's making a 30-minute video about how you got rear naked choked, dog. But Khamzat Chimaev is so good at just controlling people because of that threat. And that's what makes this difficult, is Sean Strickland, if you give up your back as him, you're gonna spend all round on bottom getting beat up, threatened with subs, and you're gonna lose that.
Think about it like this. And this is the part that has some experts genuinely worried for Chimaev. If Strickland keeps making him work for every second of ground control, that means Chimaev has to shoot for takedowns multiple times per round. Those explosive level changes, that constant wrestling pressure, the energy it takes to control a guy who's actively fighting to get back up, all of that adds up over 25 hard minutes. Bedtime MMA pointed out something crucial that most casual fans don't understand about wrestling at the elite level. It's not just about getting the takedown, it's about what happens after. If you're constantly having to re-establish position, constantly having to work to keep someone down who doesn't want to be there, that drains your gas tank way faster than people realize. Now, he doesn't think Chimaev is going to completely gas out like some fans are hoping for. Even if Strickland makes the grappling harder than usual and turns it into a real war, Chimaev has shown he can maintain a steady pace and keep pushing that wrestling pressure throughout entire fights.
DDP, he would lose him on the initial shot, and then he'd rush him again and take him to the cage where he's very hard to stop, or shoot again lower on the legs and collect the legs and then build up to a body lock and then take him down again. He has the cardio and he has the skill set to do that again and again and again. At least 2 or 3 times around, Khamzat Chimaev can fail an initial takedown or lose you on a takedown and then reshoot. So that, I think, can be a path to victory. But if he has to do it more than like 2 times in a round, I think we will start to see Khamzat Chimaev slow down. And Strickland has the skill set to continuously get back up, get back up, get back up. So I think in that aspect of just dominating Strickland in the grappling, holding him down or submitting him or beating him up, similar to the way that he kind of dominated DDP in the grappling, I don't think that's going to happen to Sean Strickland. I think the first round obviously is always going to be a wash for Khamzat Chimaev. He's going to take you down, he's going to get on your back, and he's going to just hold you there and beat you up a little bit.
But wait, it gets even more complicated when you look at why the UFC made this fight in the first place. James Lynch dove deep into the business side of this matchup, and his analysis reveals something most fans completely missed. Yeah, some people felt Nasruddin Imavov deserved the shot more based purely on rankings and recent wins, but the UFC was playing a much bigger game here. They looked at the existing tension and history between Strickland and Chimaev, all that back and forth on social media and in interviews over the years, and they realized the buildup would sell itself. No manufactured drama, no artificial storylines, just 2 guys who genuinely can't stand each other and have been waiting for the chance to settle it in the octagon. That's the kind of authentic animosity that translates to pay-per-view buys and social media buzz, and the UFC knows it.
I do feel bad for Nasruddin Imavov not getting this title shot. He's absolutely done everything he needs to do to get a title shot. But like I mentioned in that video, one of the things the UFC has struggled to do when it comes to making fights is having real grudge matches, people that don't like each other, and adding some hype to a fight. And I think this is the makings of one of the best grudge match fights for a title that we've seen in a long time, and that is obviously Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland fighting each other. They don't like each other. There's some history. They've trained together too. Sean Strickland, Very outlandish on the mic. Khamzat Chimaev, not afraid to talk some trash either. We've seen some of the back and forth on social media. I mean, let's just talk about the context of this. And that is that these two don't like each other. They're two high-level fighters. It's going to be a very interesting build-up to this fight. And you've already got the UFC kind of stacking the deck a bit with the White House.
Here's where Lynch's breakdown gets really technical, though, and why his prediction might surprise you. He looked at the actual numbers and statistics behind both fighters, and what he found was fascinating. Strickland is incredibly active on the feet, constantly throwing that jab and controlling the pace, but here's the thing nobody wants to admit: he does get hit in exchanges. He's not some untouchable defensive wizard, and his takedown defense is about to be tested more than it's ever been tested before. Lynch pointed out that Chimaev's wrestling credentials are the real deal, and the way he repeatedly took down and controlled Robert Whittaker, one of the best defensive fighters in the division, should terrify anyone in Strickland's corner. When Lynch was forced to make an actual prediction, he leaned toward Chimaev winning, but his reasoning was all about the accumulation of damage and control over 5 rounds, not some quick finish that the betting odds seem to suggest.
Sean Strickland, let's look at his stats, which I think are interesting to note here. Sean Strickland, lots of striking output, 6.04. His striking accuracy is at 42%, which is a bit lower. His striking defense is at 60%, so he does get hit a little bit, but not that much. 60% is actually fairly high. His takedown defense is at 76%. That is certainly going to get tested in this fight against Khamzat Chimaev, who we saw in his last fight just take down Dricus du Plessis at will. Du Plessis looked like, he got dominated. I mean, there's no other way to put it, right? If we take a closer look at Chimaev's stats, kind of have a look here as well. Chimaev, his takedown defense is 85, although we won't see a takedown there. His striking defense is at 43%, so that actually isn't that high. He does get hit a bit. So that's where things get interesting if it does stay standing. Now, I would argue Chimaev's got more power than Strickland as far as the stand-up goes. We've seen Chimaev get like some knockout wins. It hasn't.
Now here's where the analysis takes a completely different turn, and honestly, this might be the most important part. Chael Sonnen looked at those 6-to-1 betting odds and immediately called them suspicious. In his experience, odds that wide for a championship-level fight between elite competitors usually mean the public is missing something important. Sonnen compared it to other big fights in UFC history, where even the clear favorite was still much closer in the odds, and that comparison made him seriously question whether people are massively underestimating Sean Nasruddin's capabilities. His main point was that odds like that suggest people expect a dominant, early finish, like Chimaev is going to walk through Strickland and make it look easy. But when Chimaev actually broke down the matchup beyond just the hype, he said the entire fight comes down to one critical factor: whether Strickland can stop Chimaev's wrestling over 5 full rounds.
As far as how I think the fight plays out, I do think Chimaev wins. I think Strickland, I mean, he had lightning in a bottle against Israel Adesanya. You know, he's capable of pulling off an upset. We've seen that before. I just think Chimaev is, I don't know if anyone beats Chimaev right now. And that includes Imavov. I don't think Imavov is going to beat Chimaev either. I think Chimaev is just going to continue to get those takedowns, going to continue to put pressure on. I wonder, though, can he finish Strickland? I'm not sure. He wasn't able to finish DDP. And again, I thought DDP and Strickland were kind of neck and neck when you saw those matchups. I know every fight's different as far as the styles go, but I think Chimaev might end up winning a decision here. I don't think it's going to be a quick finish. I know he's threatened Strickland and saying, you know, like, it's going to be a quick win and all that stuff. I don't think that's going to happen.
And get this, because this is where Sonnen's analysis gets really interesting. He thinks Strickland might actually be one of the few fighters in the division who could make that wrestling part difficult. Not because he's some amazing wrestler, but because of his wide stance, excellent balance, and the overall defensive awareness he's developed over years of fighting killers. Sonnen has seen plenty of fighters with great takedown defense get overwhelmed by relentless pressure, but he's also seen technical strikers find ways to make grapplers work way harder than expected. Still, when pushed for a final prediction, even Sonnen leaned toward Chimaev as the likely winner, mainly because of that constant pressure and grappling control that eventually breaks most opponents down mentally and physically. But hold up, because Wade Plemons brings up something that changes the entire dynamic of this fight. He's looking at this matchup purely through the lens of grappling control, and that's where he sees Chimaev's biggest advantage. Most of Chimaev's fights follow the same pattern. Once he gets the fight to the ground and establishes his position, he quickly takes complete control and keeps opponents stuck there, unable to create any meaningful offense. They become defensive, reactive, just trying to survive instead of trying to win. Plemons explains that if that wrestling-heavy approach happens in this fight, Strickland could end up spending long stretches defending on the ground instead of striking where he's most dangerous. And here's the scary part for Strickland's fans. This could easily turn into Chimaev controlling position, landing small but accumulating shots, and possibly working toward a submission if the opportunity presents itself. Here's what makes Plemons' analysis so compelling, though. He points out that defending 1 or 2 takedowns in a fight is completely different from defending constant attempts over an entire 25-minute championship fight. It's like trying to hold back a flood with your bare hands. Eventually, something's going to give. Plemons believes that no matter how good Strickland's takedown defense is, Chimaev will likely find moments where he succeeds in bringing the fight to the ground. And once that happens, the physical strength and grappling pressure could take over the fight completely. The question isn't whether Chimaev will get takedowns, it's what happens when he does, and whether Strickland can limit the damage and get back to his feet before Chimaev establishes the kind of dominant control that wins rounds and breaks spirits. So here's the bottom line, and this is what all these experts keep coming back to. This fight really comes down to one simple but absolutely crucial question that will determine everything. Can Strickland keep the fight standing long enough to make his striking work and accumulate real damage? Or will Chimaev drag it to the ground where he usually dominates people and controls them completely? If Strickland can defend those early takedowns and keep the pace steady on the feet, this fight could start to look very different over time as Chimaev's output potentially slows and that cardio becomes a factor. His jab could start finding its mark more consistently, his pressure could start wearing on Chimaev mentally, and suddenly those 6-to-1 odds start looking really stupid. But if Chimaev gets control on the ground, even just a few times per round, that could be enough to swing the fight decisively in his favor on the scorecards, accumulating control time and damage while Strickland burns energy just trying to survive. The matchup literally sits on that one critical battle between takedown defense and relentless wrestling pressure, and whoever wins that battle probably wins the fight and potentially changes the entire trajectory of the middleweight division. So what do you think? Are the experts right to favor Chimaev, or is everyone sleeping on Strickland's ability to make this way harder than expected? Drop your prediction in the comments because I want to know who you've got in this absolutely fascinating stylistic war. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really at stake in this fight, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because this is just the beginning of what's going to be an insane build-up. I'll see you in the next one. But wait, there's another angle to this fight that literally nobody is discussing, and it might be the most important factor of all. Strickland's mental warfare game is absolutely elite level, and that psychological pressure could play a massive role against someone like Chimaev, who's never really been tested in a true dog fight. Think about what happened in Strickland's last few fights. He gets inside his opponent's heads before they even step into the octagon. The constant trash talk, the mind games, the way he makes everything personal. It's not just entertainment. It's a legitimate tactical weapon that breaks fighters down mentally before the physical war even begins. Here's what makes this psychological element so dangerous for Chimaev. The guy has steamrolled through most of his opponents so quickly that he's never had to deal with someone who's going to be in his face for 25 straight minutes, talking trash, pressuring him, making him work for every single exchange. Strickland thrives in that kind of chaotic, high-pressure environment where things get messy and uncomfortable. He's the type of fighter who actually gets stronger as the fight gets uglier, while some fighters start to crack when their game plan isn't working perfectly. And here's something that should terrify Chimaev's camp. Strickland has been studying this matchup for months, maybe even years, knowing this fight would eventually happen. He's had time to develop specific strategies for dealing with Chimaev's wrestling, specific ways to make those grappling exchanges as difficult and energy-draining as possible. Meanwhile, Chimaev has been used to opponents who come in intimidated, already mentally defeated before the first bell rings. Strickland is the complete opposite of that. He's going to come in confident, aggressive, and completely unafraid of Chimaev's reputation. But let me tell you about something even more interesting that could completely change this fight. Strickland's camp has been working extensively with wrestling coaches who specifically understand Chimaev's style. They've been drilling scenarios where Strickland gets taken down but immediately starts working back to his feet, making Chimaev carry his weight, making every second of ground control feel like work instead of rest. This isn't just about defending takedowns anymore. It's about making the wrestling exchanges so exhausting and frustrating that Chimaev starts hesitating on his shots later in the fight. Think about this for a second, and this is where the fight gets really fascinating from a tactical standpoint. What if Strickland actually wants to get taken down early in the first round? What if his entire strategy is to let Chimaev shoot, defend just enough to make it difficult, then immediately start working back up while making Chimaev carry his full body weight? That could be a genius way to drain Chimaev's gas tank early while showing him that the wrestling isn't going to be as easy as it usually is. It's a risky strategy, but if it works, Chimaev could find himself breathing heavy by the end of round 2. Now here's where this gets absolutely wild, and I'm talking about something that could completely flip the script on this entire fight. Strickland's striking isn't just about that jab everyone talks about. His body work is absolutely brutal and could be the key to everything. If he can consistently land shots to Chimaev's midsection while they're standing, especially after those energy-draining wrestling exchanges, that cumulative damage could slow down Chimaev's explosive takedown attempts as the fight progresses. Body shots don't always show up on highlight reels, but they win fights by breaking down opponents' conditioning and will to continue pressing forward. Here's what most people don't understand about Strickland's striking game. Yes, the jab gets all the attention, but his ability to mix in hard body shots, leg kicks, and those sneaky uppercuts in the clinch could be devastating against a fighter who's primarily focused on wrestling entries. While Chimaev is thinking about level changes and takedown setups, Strickland could be systematically breaking down his body with precision shots that accumulate damage over 5 rounds. And here's the kicker: if Chimaev starts slowing down from that body work, suddenly his wrestling becomes much less explosive and dangerous. But wait, there's another dimension to this fight that could be absolutely crucial, and it's all about the championship rounds. Chimaev has never been in a 5-round war where he had to dig deep and find that extra gear in rounds 4 and 5. Strickland, on the other hand, has been in those championship-level battles where everything hurts, where your gas tank is empty, and you have to fight purely on heart and experience. That championship-level cardio and mental toughness could be the deciding factor if this fight goes into the later rounds. And here's something that should make Chimaev's team nervous: Strickland actually gets more dangerous as fights go longer. He's like a shark that smells blood in the water when opponents start slowing down. His pressure becomes more suffocating, his shots become more accurate, and his mental warfare reaches another level when he senses weakness. If Chimaev starts showing any signs of fatigue in rounds 3 or 4, Strickland is exactly the type of fighter who will capitalize on that and turn up the heat even more. Now let me blow your mind with something that could completely change how you see this fight. What if the betting odds are actually creating the perfect storm for a massive upset? Think about it. When odds are that lopsided, it usually means the favorite is carrying enormous pressure to perform while the underdog has absolutely nothing to lose. Strickland thrives in that underdog role where everyone expects him to lose. It's where he does his best work mentally and physically. Here's the psychological warfare aspect that nobody's talking about. Chimaev is going to walk into that octagon knowing that everyone expects him to dominate, knowing that anything less than a convincing win will be seen as a disappointment. That kind of pressure can make fighters overthink, can make them force things instead of letting their natural abilities flow. Meanwhile, Strickland is going to be completely loose, completely free to take risks and push the pace because nobody expects him to win anyway. And here's where this gets really interesting from a career perspective. This fight isn't just about who wins, it's about what it does to both fighters' futures in the division. If Strickland pulls off the upset, he instantly becomes one of the most dangerous fighters in the middleweight division and probably gets a title shot. But if Chimaev wins, especially if he wins convincingly, he's looking at a potential title eliminator or even a direct shot at the championship. The stakes couldn't be higher for both guys. But here's what makes this fight so compelling beyond just the technical matchup. Both of these fighters represent completely different eras and styles in mixed martial arts. Strickland represents that old-school, volume striking, pressure-fighting style that's been effective for decades. Chimaev represents this new wave of complete mixed martial artists who can dominate fights through superior grappling and physical strength. This isn't just a fight, it's a clash of philosophies about what works in modern MMA. Here's my final prediction, and I think this is going to shock a lot of people. I actually think this fight goes the distance and is way closer than those betting odds suggest. Strickland's going to make the wrestling exchanges difficult enough to keep Chimaev from completely taking over, and his striking volume is going to accumulate enough damage to make the later rounds really interesting. This could easily be a fight where we're all arguing about the decision afterward, regardless of who gets their hand raised. The real question is whether you're brave enough to put money on those 6-to-1 odds, because if Strickland pulls this off, a lot of people are going to make serious cash while the experts are left scratching their heads wondering how they got it so wrong.